Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. 6 high-risk inmates at the Fort Augusta Adult Correctional Center on South Camp Road in Kingston have been relocated to the Horizon Remand Center on Spanish Town Road. It's part of additional security measures in light of unrest at Fort Augusta. Following the stabbing of an inmate last week, other inmates voiced their concerns on social media site Facebook, adding that the authorities were violating their rights. In a statement this morning, State Minister in the Ministry of National Security, Rudyard Spencer, said the institution's medical team indicated that 3 inmates were diagnosed as mentally ill and placed in single cells. Mr. Spencer says frequent and random searches will be conducted and gate procedures enhanced. More staff will also be deployed. As it relates to the use of cell phones by inmates, Mr. Spencer says all electrical outlets will be removed from cell blocks. Family and friends of 13-year-old Rajon Taylor, who died in a vehicular accident in St. Thomas, gathered at the Springfield Main Road on Monday to protest the death of the teen. Residents claim that the incident could have been prevented if the driver was driving within the speed limit. TVJ's Shamela Pullen has more in this story.
Come on. We need everybody to come down here and help us, because we need a better road and we need justice. We need justice.
That's the cry of angry residents of Friendship Pen in St. Thomas. The residents who protested on Monday say speeding was a factor in the teen's death. They are calling on the authorities to put measures in place to prevent similar loss of life in the future.
We need the MP, we need the councillors of Western St. not even Western St. Thomas. We need the MPs, we need the councillors in St. Thomas to step up, to do something about the roads. We need the cars, all the vehicles, because you have some good truck. You want to see when them a pass, them overtake in this bad road. Look at the condition of the road. We need a pedestrian. We need a pedestrian right here. And we need signs, one in that corner and another one right at that corner, because we need them to see the signs in order to slow down.
We are calling now in the name of Jesus. We are calling now. Come to us. We need you. Pitney are dead. Look at the road narrow. You fix Manchester Bay, you fix Ocean, you fix everyone to man be with it on the map. You forget to all together and one time you see your face. And you make us a promise. Say you help man be. And you neglect us. What we do? What sin have we done? Make you neglect man be like this. What have we done? Come to us now in Jesus' name.
With tears in his eyes, Rajon's father pled for motorists to stop the speeding.
I would like all speeding to stop on the road, wherever. We lose so many loved ones. Right now I'm grieved, I'm breaking down. It doesn't feel so right, but I've got to talk what I have on my mind. This is my son that I really love dearly. I don't know what to say.
Rajon Taylor, who attended the St. Thomas Technical High School, was on his way to a nearby shop when he was hit by a Toyota Hiace bus. He was taken to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. The driver of the vehicle is still in police custody. Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
In the meantime, flowers and letters were placed at Rajon's seat as the school community mourned his death. Acting Vice Principal of St. Thomas Technical High, Ricardo Morgan, described Rajon as an outstanding student.
A very promising young man. He came into our school with a lot of promise. He was supposed to be a part of the school's football team next year. Because he tried out this year, but he was too young. Needed some more experience, but very good promise.
He also had this message for the motoring public.
Right now, we're just appealing to the motoring public in general, to be safe on our roads. protect the life of course, pedestrians, but in fact, our children, who are the most vulnerable of us all.
One man is dead following a house fire in Enfield, St. Mary last night. Dead is 39-year-old Joey Boris. It's reported that about 9:30, residents saw fire coming from the 5-bedroom dwelling and alerted the fire department. Upon arrival, Mr. Boris's remains were found inside the building. He shared the dwelling with his mother, who was attending to her grandchildren.
Tell my grandson that anytime I'm ready for morning, he can lock up the door, you know, his doors. And I just hear a crowd out at the window. Miss Karen, yo, some burn down. So me run, come out now, and me tear up the door, and me run, come out now. When me come, my son in the house and burn. And it burned to Chris.
29-year-old Kemar Brand of Roses Valley in St. Elizabeth was yesterday remanded in the St. Elizabeth Parish Court for charges of illegal possession of a firearm and ammunition. He is scheduled to return to court on January 22. It's reported that Mr. Brand, who was at a dance in the Balaclava community, was observed giving a gun salute. He was accosted by police personnel, and during a struggle, a pistol with a magazine containing 4 rounds was taken from him. He escaped custody and fled the scene. An arrest warrant was prepared, however, he turned himself in to the police last week. In court yesterday, it was revealed that the case file was incomplete, as the report from the police forensic lab is still outstanding. The Education Ministry is insisting that all schools are required to comply with the interim guidelines which have been set out for the sale and serving of beverages in schools. This disclosure came from Chief Education Officer Dr. Grace McLean on TVJ's Smile Jamaica on Wednesday.
The ministry will not get directly involved in a school that has decided, in terms of the operations of a school that has decided not to comply. What we do is to make contact with the board chair, and of course the minister will give the direction, and we expect compliance.
Dr. McLean said that if those guidelines are not followed, the ministry will have to take matters into its own hands.
Then from the minister's level, the necessary support will be provided, and if it is necessary for anything to be done to ensure that there is compliance, then it will be done.
The ban on sugary drinks in schools came into effect on January 1. It's been used by the Health Ministry to reduce the number of lifestyle diseases in the country and the high rate of obesity in children. A recent survey showed that for the period 2010 to 2017, there was a 68.3% increase in obese students from between ages 13 and 15 years. It warned that if left unchecked, obesity trends could continue upwards. And time now for a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report.
Of the health report, we look at lupus.
Lupus is caused by a number of interacting factors. The patient must have a genetic predisposition to the disease, but genetics only account for 30 to 40%. There has to be other environmental issues that predispose the patient. We have identified some include smoking, some include deficiency in vitamin D, but there are other things that can trigger autoimmune diseases such as lupus, including infections, other stressors on the body.
That's the health report this evening in Primetime News. And now for today's healthy living tip. Avoid stress. Get rest. Quit smoking. Try not to eat garlic. And avoid salt.
In news overseas, cabin crew for international airline Melinda Air have been accused of helping to smuggle heroin worth millions of dollars from Asia to Australian cities as part of a multinational syndicate. Details from Australia's Sky News.
The airline being exploited by this alleged drug ring is a small Malaysian carrier known as Melinda Air. Police say at least 2 of their onboard flight crew were being used by a Vietnamese syndicate to smuggle drugs into Australia. 8 people have been arrested, including one 38-year-old flight attendant who allegedly carried 1 kilogram of heroin to the country in her luggage. Others involved in the operation were strapping the drugs to their bodies. In total, 6 kilograms of high-grade heroin, 8 kilograms of methamphetamine and half a kilogram of cocaine has been seized, all worth $20 million and equivalent to tens of thousands of street hits. A large quantity of cash and luxury cars were also taken in the sting. Operation Sunrise has been investigating the drug ring over the past 5 months, but it's believed the syndicate has been operating a lot longer than that.
Intelligence would tell us that this crew have been operating for some years. I would say, 5+, but I don't know whether or not it's decades.
Last year, 2,000 onboard flight members were searched by officers, and authorities will now be more vigilant, warning nobody is above being searched. All 8 of the accused have already faced court. 6 have been remanded in custody, while 2 have been released on bail to face court at a later date.
Still overseas, a man in Milwaukee has been accused of stabbing a woman in a wheelchair more than 100 times. For the details, we join the CNN.
A bloodied wheelchair sits abandoned in the backyard of this South Milwaukee home. It's what's left behind after a grisly attack unraveled days ago.
You wouldn't expect something like that to happen to such a nice lady.
Yvonne Litke heard her neighbor Debbie Lynch struggling inside her apartment Friday.
I started pounding on the door, and she said, "Back door."
Litke ran to the back door where she witnessed Lynch trying to fight off an attacker. She says the wheelchair-bound 62-year-old was already bleeding.
I couldn't get the door open. I tried. I was pounding and kicking, and I tried to get in there, wanted to help her.
Litke says she went to get her brother and called police when the suspect ran off. Officers later arrested Kahindi Afulayan for stabbing Lynch 116 times. She died of her injuries.
I never seen him coming. I'd never seen him leaving. I never seen him before.
Family and faith were the foundation of Lynch's life. For nearly 4 decades, she was a loyal member of Oak Creek Assembly of God.
She wouldn't harm anybody, and she was so soft-spoken.
Litke wishes she could have done more for the neighbor who she says touched so many lives.
I always felt she was like such a nice lady. She wouldn't harm anybody.
And in sports, ever since the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission JADCO started operating in Jamaica in July 2008, there seems to be an acrimonious relationship between the organization and athletes. But is that the case? TVJ's Jordan Fort explores the issue.
I've retired from track and field, working to become a footballer. But look at this. How am I going to get drug tests today? How? I'm not even a professional footballer yet. Seriously.
That complaint from the world's fastest man isn't unique. Athletes have often complained about being unfairly targeted, over-tested, or just ill-treated during testing. Here's another example from West Indies cricketer Marlon Samuels.
Vampires them come from my blood so early in the morning, knock on my door, JADCO, and them want to shoot them needle in my hand. And so near I got you. Eh? You saw now them wicked. 22 years I play cricket. Right? Every drugs test me do. First time I ever do a blood test in Jamaica with JADCO.
And the Jamaica anti-doping officials have had their own run-ins with athletes, most notably in 2017 when they lost a case involving Olympian Khalees Spencer based on procedural issues. JADCO chairman Alexander Williams responded to those concerns.
There needed to be a change in management. That change in management has taken place. There needed to be a tightening up of how the doping control officers were trained. That has happened.
As for the practice of athletes posting grouses on social media, Williams, who is also an attorney at law, gave this piece of advice.
If any athlete has a dispute, and I'm just talking to athletes there, for your own benefit, the last thing you want to do is to make it public. The last thing you want to do, whether you feel you're in the right or in the wrong, you don't go out in the public.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Do remember to join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.